You tried to keep them down, but you couldn't keep them underneath for quite a long time, could ya? The GSCS recorded podcast is back for to start off the season. It will be me and Taysom to start off just like old times. Taysom, we've been doing this since 2020, but it's good to be back.
Yep, it is good to be back. I had to leave for a while, but guess who's back? It is the big TAY with the big MEL. Godspeed Championship Series. The merge happened, and we have some of the best teams that we could possibly have in here.
Oh yeah, let's actually get started on the GSCS qualifiers. Let's see if we can have the bracket on the screen. Wow, what a performance, first of all, by Spate Esports. They came in as, I think, not an underdog. They were a team that I think everyone knew was going to do at least top 3, maybe confirmed top 2. But a team that I think has had their number in almost every single tournament that they've really played, Team Car, especially in the old Godspeed tournaments, Valiant tournaments. Team Car was a team that I think everyone knew. At least in my opinion, I thought Team Car was going to win the entire event. They ran into Spate Esports in the winning semis, and Spate Esports pulled off the upset. Team Car did not look their best, and Spate Esports went on to the winners final, faced the Cheeseballs, ended up winning that matchup, going to the grand finals, and then Cheeseballs ended up taking down Guacamole Gang after the Team Car decided to forfeit to Guacamole Gang. And then Cheeseballs went up 2-0 in the series of grand finals against Spate, and then Spate Esports won 3 in a row with the game win advantage in the grand final, ended up taking it all in a stunning showing.
Yeah, what a story by Spate Esports. A team that I do individually want to focus on, actually, is the Fortniters. I think, in my opinion, they have one of the most interesting stories and one of the most interesting storylines. If you know the GSCS, me, Mel, Taysom, Brovanix, we're all about the storylines, and I think the Fortniters are one of the teams that I think, in my opinion, have the most interesting storyline. You have Finer, who hasn't performed consistently actually since he made his debut in the GSCS in the January 2022 actually off season of this past year. Mel, can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I did talk about it a little bit on the stream, didn't I? It was, I mean, Finer, he's a player that I feel like is not, he's a player that some of the bigger teams like to look at to improve their team, but I mean, the storyline for him so far since he's joined the league is since every single team that he's really been on, he hasn't performed as well as people I think thought that he would, and I know he's looking for like a permanent home now. So the Fortniters, he decided to team Legacy and Baby Science, 2 players that I feel like should do pretty well so far this season, instead of have Finer as a third. And people really questioned that, actually. People really questioned that move, and I think it's a move that Finer really needs, and I feel like if he doesn't really perform on this individual team, I don't think people are going to say that his career in the GSCS is going to be over, but especially for the fall split, I really do not know if other top teams that are looking for spots would really want to pick him up, and he might have to resort to what happened last year of looking for players and teams that are a little bit lower ranked. But I'm going to have to say, though, if he needs to have a performance on this team in the split, really, for him to still be in contention for one of the better players in the GSCS, especially after what happened last season. He actually did make a top 8, but he's really struggled to do better than top 12. For a player of the caliber that he is, he's a great player. He just needs to find a way to find his footing.
I think that Baby Scythe and Legacy are the 2 players that I think he can have an amazing performance with. If you look, the players that he's been surrounded by in the past have not really been in contention for anything. I think in the past he had James and someone else as a teammate. At the time, James he was kind of on his little fall off line, and he really didn't have a solid teammate. He couldn't have solid results. Even N2, he actually had a pretty good team, and I think where people started doubting him is when he actually had a pretty bad show match against Kyohaku Esports when Kyohaku Esports made their debut in the regular season with Xenex, and Xenex kind of pretty much styled on fire. He had two pretty good teammates. He had Dash and Hydroid. And Dash being an EU player, I mean, the ping really did come into a factor, but no, it really didn't. He had pretty good ping on the AE service, and that really shows how good of the teammates he's had earlier on, better results he's had earlier on. And then when people started seeing he was starting to perform a little bit more inconsistent, they started dropping him. He went down to a lower ranked team, and then couldn't do anything there. Tried to go a little bit higher ranked, teamed up with James and I think Clarity, and didn't do all that well in the last couple events of last season. Couldn't make the championship, and now here we are.
Well, yep, now let's go on to talk a little bit about Blizzard Eternal. What happened to Blizzard Eternal? They collapsed. Oh my god. People, I mean, I remember Rayless, the Blizzard Eternal, they went to game 3 2 times against some pretty good teams. That's some pretty unfortunate first round matchups. And of course, the time it was Slippery, Kenyon, and Caesar. It was their first time playing with each other actually as a series. It was their first time actually ever playing with each other, that series, that first matchup. And they actually went to game 3. They couldn't do really much. I mean, it was pretty nice. Slippery hit a full court air dribble, flip reset, double tap dunk in that first series to really get them cemented into game number 2, but nothing really else that really shouted out. I mean, series 2, they kind of found their footing, but they went against Project Evil, which were a pretty good team that ended up actually making the main event. And their first round matchup was Xterm, who I think are the 7th seed going into the main event. I can fact check myself on that in a little bit, but a pretty good showing by the team that they played against. But I mean, now it's a little bit different. It's harder to look at some of these matchups and say, oh my gosh, this is such a beatable team. And for the first time really in GSES history, in a main event, every single team is not a beatable team. There is no team that you could actually look at and say, hey, this is a beatable team, we can get a free win against this team. This, I think, is one of the first times every single team is around each other's skill level. There are a couple of teams that I think are definitely going to be favorited, but a lot of those matchups are going to be extremely hard for players to go up against, and especially the 9th seed, actually, Xterm, and the 10th seed, Project Evil, are the two teams that Blizzard Eternal ended up having to face, and Slippery didn't really have that good of a showing. They were all on pretty high ping. At one point, Kingdom was at like over 900 ping for a couple of seconds, but we decided to keep Slippery on Blizzard Eternal from last season's championship run. He played amazing in the championship and throughout last season, but he didn't have the best showing here in the qualifiers. They decided to play a couple of scrims, but the rumor is, and I'm going to keep this with the little quotation marks rumors, because Slippery might still end up being on this roster for the next qualifier, but there is a rumor, quote-unquote rumor, that Blizzard Eternal might be moving away from Slippery going into the next qualifier. They could keep him on the roster if they don't find anyone, or they could keep him on the roster as sub, but that's something pretty big that people have to really kind of look out for. A player as good as mechanical and good as the former GC3-1's player Slippery entering the LFT market is a player that I feel like a lot of different people can look at and pick up. There are every single team that Slippery could join 100% would improve that team by some type of a margin. But he just did not have the best showing at the qualifier one, especially for Blizzard Eternal. This is the first time that Blizzard Esports as an organization will not be represented in a main event, a GSCS main event, since 2020, in over 2.5 years. So I think that's pretty big. That's like a big mental shutdown for a team, a player, to really come and look at. Oh my goodness gracious. This is the first time we have never actually made a main event. This is a team that is an organization that is used to always being in there, but now the competition has gotten harder, steeper, and it was a risk for Blizzard Esports to not have multiple rosters as they always do to guarantee at least one of them in the main event. They really thought this one would go in, but unfortunate showing, and the two teams that they did end up facing are going to be the 9 and 10 seeds going in to the GSCS main event starting this weekend.
Let's shift and talk about the collapse of
There was no collapse. There was no collapse. Stop. Dude, this is the thing. I always love how we get into things, but this one might be a little bit too far. There was no collapse of Team Car. They lost 2 out of 3 games to the team that ended up winning the tournament.
Spate
and then decided
Esports
to
never win the Team Car. Tell me in every single tournament, you see when did they win?
Are you done now?
This kid.
Are you done now? Well, no, it's not always about winning. Spate Esports recently have won some very, very competitive tournaments. I'm pretty sure they just won one of the Valiant tournaments a couple weeks ago. Spate Esports are a team that is around Team Car's level. They are very competitive against each other. Again, as I said, there is no team. They might be favorites, yes, but there is no team that you can say is 100% beatable.
I know, no one's saying they're beatable though, right? Because if you just go ahead and look at the results, they will show you for previous tournaments that Spate Esports, Team Car has had Spate Esports number. Okay? So this is a collapse.
It's a qualifier. All you have to do is get into top 8, or in this case, top 15, top 12 to really guarantee, and you're fine. It's a qualifier.
You really have to get first in the qualifier to get conceded.
No, here's the thing. When Team Car forfeited, they know they're guaranteed inside the top 7. They forfeited in like top 7, top 6 range. They're the number 7 seed going into the main event, really. And I feel like they know that. As long as you're on the other side of the number 8 seeded line, I think as a team, you are going to be fine.
Yeah, but technically, a lot of in these tournaments, the better seeding you get, the worse opponents you get. The worse seeding you get, the better opponents you face. And really, Team Car is going to be in the mid-matches.
Here's the thing. Team Car is a top 2 team, in my opinion. I think in really everyone's opinion, except, of course, the players, because they feel like they're the best. And there's no team that is really beatable, but in my opinion, Team Car has got to be one of the favorites to win the tournament, right? They will be fine. Believe me, they should make it out of group Swiss, whatever is going to be the format for the day 1 of the main event. They really should be fine. I don't see an upset incoming. I think Team Car should easily breeze through Swiss or group stage. Either way, any single time throughout the entire season, they should be able to breeze through whatever format that we throw at them.
I feel like you do have a point there, but as the season goes on, there are going to be teams that are coming that are going to be better and better and better and better, aren't they?
Of course there will be. And really all Team Car has to do is evolve with the format, evolve with the teams, evolve with the meta, which isn't hard because they are still very, very young players. They should be fine, as I am saying. I mean, we've had extremely long seasons. Remember the Muffin Boys. The Muffin Boys, originally in season 1 to 3, in season 1 they were called Team Comeback. Same roster, switched, different name. Now called Muffin Boys. A team that you managed, Taysom, right? They were some of the worst players in the league. Came out, they had formations and not rotations. That's something that we've said. That's something that we've covered 2 years ago. And they came out and they were the best team in the league for 2.5 years straight. And they were not even ranked high. They were not rated high. They played thousands of matches, scrims, and games, and they knew how to keep up with the meta. They developed their own type of meta, which was super undefeatable, and that's technically how they got there. I'm not saying Team Car has to do the exact same. I'm just pointing you out and saying, remember, there were teams and players that were extremely bad that kept and went to the top. How about Team Car that is starting technically, in my opinion, from the top, should be able to stay there leveled for a long time?
That's not exactly how Rocket League competition works now anymore, Mel. I mean, there are teams that just fall off over a course of a single split, even regional. So why can't it happen over a qualifier?
Because it's a qualifier! Okay. Alright. I think that's it. For a little bit. Let's actually go ahead and look at some of the upsets, in my opinion, that happened. We already covered Blizzard Eternal. Realism Esports fell to the lower bracket or immediately got dethroned by Sloth Squadron, but who actually ended up losing to the Guacamole Gang that actually made top 4. And also K9, a team, they beat K9, a team that was, Sloth beat a team K9 that has actually players that actually wanted to make the main event because their story was pretty interesting. Actually, 2 brothers that I believe are twins actually are playing for K9, and it was super close to make the main event as well. Actually, it came down to a singular game in the game differential process that kept them from having a tiebreaker with Naptown Phoenix to actually make it into the main event. But unfortunately for them, excuse me, it did not happen. And K9, unfortunately, with a single game, were eliminated from main event contention.
I think another team that we should really be talking about here, Xterm Esports, lost to Scrib. Yes, I'm talking about Scrib, the owner of Naptown Phoenix. Oh, that's what the owner of Naptown United, rather. They play with Scrib, Sniz, and Pink, and they won to Xterm Esports, a team that I feel like should have been in contention for top 8 this season, and they went down the first 2 rounds, originally losing to Falling Aqua Black, a GC1 to Champ 3 team, maybe a GC2 over there, scattered around there somewhere. Xterm Esports Academy actually made the main event as the number 13th seed? Actually number 11th seed. They did make top 12 in the qualifier, losing to Fortniters, the legacy team that we were talking about earlier today.
Yeah, and the thing is, all of these teams are good. All of these teams are like GC2 and higher. I mean, maybe a couple of them are not, but I mean, Xterm is a team that is amazing. They took a game off of the top 4 Guacamole Gang, who went to game 4 against the Cheeseballs. I mean, all of these teams are absolutely amazing. I think Power, I think they kind of got lucky taking the game off of Xterm Esports Academy because they made the main event. Had they not taken that game off, I think they would have actually sparked a 3-way tiebreaker between Phoenix, K9, had they taken a game off of Sloth and themselves. So that was also pretty good. The Thrive HQ, one of the bigger organizations in the Rocket League scene, decided to enter into the GSCS Season Open Qualifier, and they actually lost in a 3-game series to Team Power in the losers round, but they ended up actually taking the series off of Realism Esports, another pretty big organization, but ended up losing in a game 3 to Team Minimal. So had they won that game to Team Minimal might have not actually been in the main event, and instead Realism Esports, not Realism, the Thrive HQ actually would have been in the main event, but underperforming teams, in my opinion, would kind of all of those that were also mentioned, but of course, Blizzard is falling under that range. Elite Esports White, in my opinion, is a team I expected to do a little bit better than they ended up doing, considering their not long but pretty decent history in the Godspeed Esports tournaments. But they ended up losing, actually, to Project Evil, who took down Blizzard Eternal, who actually was pretty good against the quote-unquote fart smellers, but it was a pretty interesting tournament, a pretty interesting qualifier, and a pretty interesting podcast. This is Season 4 of the GSCS Recorded Podcast, Season I of the modern era of the Gaming Spot Championship Series, now known as the Godspeed Championship Series. We, ladies and gentlemen, will see you in the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, the main event times are starting 7 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Look out for it on the Godspeed Twitch channel.